Hi, I'm Ricardo Avila.
And I'm Greg Knight.
Greg and I would like to invite you to listen to our once in a while podcast, the PC Music Diary.
That's right. Ricardo and I chat with each other about our favorite songs around a common theme, artist, or genre, and present our personal top 5 songs on the topic.
Now, this isn't just your standard music podcast, though. We also reflect on how the songs we choose weave their way into our lives.
Yeah, it's like you're literally reading our personal diaries through the lyrics of Morrissey, Prince, Whitney Houston, and Eddie Vedder.
Well, maybe not Eddie Vedder.
What do you mean? Like when he sings, that doesn't remind you of your first pet?
So listen to PC Music Diary in the Popping Collars feed.
I miss you, Fluffy.
What comes next is far from clear. We'll be right
Hi, I'm Greg Knight.
Hey, I'm Ryan Parker.
And this is the Popping Collars Pilgrimage Project, a Popping Collars side pod where Ryan and I attempt to walk around the world, or at least around Spain.
It'd be great to try to walk around the world. Oh, if we had money and time.
Ryan, this is one of our movie episodes. We're talking about the documentary I'll Push You.
It still amazes me how far we've come.
Hola. ¿Vais haciendo el camino? Sí. Sí. Va a tener bastante difícil.
Sí, muy difícil.
Lo sabéis.
Sí.
Turn your tired eyes toward the landed pride. Fickle fortune favors.
That's been something that's so rare. I haven't seen a friendship like that before.
I don't know how much time he has. You know. Mechanical malfunction.
Oh gosh. It's hard not to feel like a burden in this.
So, fabrication.
Got it? Slow.
Oh, I'm cramping.
I think his body's kind of feeling the effects of it the last several days.
It sucks. Try not to let Jess know that it sucks, though. Man, I'm not like who I am. Okay, seriously, dude, it's time to walk.
I'm just faking it, guys.
I have no idea how far this goes. I don't either. Sometimes it's best not to know.
It's really hard to let somebody do that for you.
Yo, what's up, bro?
I don't know how we're going to be able to do it. It was an act of faith. These are waters that are too deep for me to handle on my own. That's pretty stupid. Honey, I love you if I die. I love you.
If I do have the time that I have here now, then let's enjoy it.
I have a brief description of the film. Would you like to hear it?
Of course.
I'll Push You is about 2 lifelong friends, one quadriplegic who embark on the pilgrimage of the Santiago de Compostela. It's a documentary about friendship and the grittiness of love and sacrifice. So here's the thing, Ryan. You and I could spend an hour talking about this movie, or We could just talk to the guys who were actually in this movie, Justin Skeesuk and Patrick Gray.
Actually, I think people would probably rather just hear you and I wax the film. That's why they're tuning in.
I'm sure you have a question for the guys, and I'll let you lead off with that first question.
We're going to talk a lot in this conversation with you all about the why of the Camino, just period, broadly speaking. But talk about the difference between walking the Camino like you did, which is a wild and crazy thing, to, okay, now we're going to make a film about this experience. Like, what was the why of making a film?
Oh, Pat can answer that one pretty quickly. Yeah,
pretty quickly. The why of making the film. I mean, we had decided we're doing this. This was Justin's idea, and he sucked me into it. But no, we. I mean, I was literally talking to my boss at the time when I was working at the hospital here in Boise, Idaho. I was in administration, and my boss is putting on a barbecue for our team. And I will never forget it. I'm pushing my daughter in a swing. I see a guy in a manual wheelchair on the sidewalk at this park where we have this barbecue, and he's rolling by. And the conversation when Justin first asked me what I thought about doing the Camino is playing in my head. And we had been talking about when we could do this, but it was out in the ether. There was nothing concrete. And it was just one of those kind of moments where it's like, there's never going to be a right time, just a right mindset. Like, so many things in life, there's not a right time, it's just a right mindset. And so Ed comes walking over, and he's standing next to me as I'm pushing my daughter. And I said, "Hey, Ed, I'm going to need 6 weeks off next summer." And he said, "Wait, what?" So I explained to him my relationship with Justin, because Justin was still down in San Diego at this point in time. So he had never met Justin. And as I'm kind of walking him through our relationship and this idea Justin has, like his demeanor just shifts completely. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to do everything in my power to give you 6 weeks off. But you have to promise me you'll do everything in your power to document it on film." And I said, "Why?" And his response was, I'll never forget it. He said, "Because if you don't, you're selfish and you're irresponsible. There's too much hope not to share." It was like,
wow.
Whoa. Did not see it at all. I got on the phone or the email that night, told Justin we got a Skype tomorrow and to fill you in on something, because he was over in Italy at the time. The next day we hop on. I tell him what's going on. He's like, I guess we're going next summer. We got to figure this out. And that's how the idea for the film came about, was because Ed, we call him the godfather of the documentary. He's in the documentary. Such a cool dude. But yeah, he saw something that we just did not see. And I don't know that it would carry the same weight if we had, to be honest with you. I think it's important that someone else had to open our eyes to a different perspective of what we, for a long time, have taken for granted, this relationship. Not out of
the first lessons we learned.
Yeah, it's that people are hungry for what we have. Yeah. And we don't know that, but we should share this. And then I guess the rest is history.
One thing I'm curious about with you guys, which is, you documented this first trip, right? So you have it as like, it lives like a time capsule, like back in 2017. So as we keep going forward, whenever you look back at that, I don't know when the last time you watched the documentary was, but like, how does it feel to like see those two people doing that trip? And here you are now leading these groups, and like, what does it feel like to sort of see yourself from the past, and what's that legacy? How has that legacy kind of lived for you guys?
When we did our first Camino, the big, the 500-mile one, it was a mass experiment of, can we do it? Can we do it? I mean, literally just, can Pat and I even make it? I mean, that was kind of goal number one. Whether or not the film was, I guess for me was secondary in a way. But we wanted to capture it. So that was the whole point. So looking back at it, I look at us, my younger self, our younger self, of trusting our instincts and trusting the process not knowing what the outcome would be. And so whether or not Patrick and I made it, I don't think it ended up becoming, we're going to try. Like, I think we were just going to do our best, but it was, it almost wasn't the end. It was the whole point of even doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I look back and go, I'm glad I trusted that, that not only to have trust in myself that we could do it, but we trusted each other
Mm-hmm.
in it. Well, I mean, I think Pat and I kind of say, we've said over the years, would we go back and do it again, knowing what we know now? Probably not. Mostly because of the physical nature. I think it was, for me to have Patrick go through that again, to see him what he did for me or for us as a collective, I wouldn't feel cool with that. I mean, personally. But
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, Pat's very clearly said, like, yeah, it's kind of one and done.
Right.
But I think I'm just really proud that we trusted in that process, and didn't know where it would lead us. And then just knowing that it's going to be a literal up and down challenge, backwards, forward, sideways, and a metaphorical one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that it really, for me specifically, I think it just kind of cemented that the new lens, I think when you come back from something like that,
Mm-hmm.
of what I think we're capable of doing, I think that's what my biggest takeaway was just the opening of the doors, the opening of my mind, the opening of my heart to go, okay, well, where does life and God lead me?
Mm-hmm.
And being okay with that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the trajectory that it kind of put me on specifically. Patrick had his own, he can speak to himself, his own journey, but it is kind of weird looking back though. You look at it and you go, how in the heck do we even do it? I mean, I literally, like, to this day, don't know how we did it.
Brother, when I was coming down down into Roncesvalles, and even like down from Roncesvalles to Zubiri, like, you guys were on my mind. I was like, holy shit. Like, how in the world do you get down these rocks? Like, it is wild to me. That was impressive.
Well, we zigzagged.
Yeah, zigzag.
Lots of zigzags.
It becomes a thing where you look at it, you're not, I think if I reflect back, I know Patrick and I weren't looking at, I mean, Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm pretty accurate. It wasn't like, all right, we have 498 miles to go. Like, it wasn't that at all. It was like, can we even get through this next 20 hours?
It was very segmented. Like, there was there was I have so much time allotted for this, with work being off, or with the time I had off from work, and so there was that on my mind. But it was more just a day to day of like, here's where we're trying to get. Let's see if we can get there. If we can, great. If we can't, we'll figure it out tomorrow. We'll figure it out tomorrow. I mean, it was just day by day by day.
Every day.
So it's very interesting. But going back to your original question there, I echo what Justin's saying about that. You kind of just, there's a lot of, I guess, revealing of things when you jump into something that tests your mental and physical and emotional resolve. Mm-hmm. But what's so interesting to me is the majority of people we meet that are doing the Camino, they're going solo or they're going with one other person, but it's for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing. We stepped into this unbeknownst to us. We were coming in totally blind, for the most part. It's Justin, myself, our buddy Ted for those first 10 days. But there's this kind of insular community right out of the gates, right? Very strong relationships between the three of us. And then we're pulling people in very rapidly into an intense community. And it seemed like the community we were able to develop is a lot of what people get to experience on day 25, 26, 27. But it was just there.
Right away.
And because it was right away, I'm not saying ours is better or worse than somebody else. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have this massive community that's behind us by day 10, and then day 12, and then day 14. It just keeps growing, and people are coming, in and out. But it's very focused around one common goal is just let's get Justin to this day. Let's get Patrick to this day. And so we're experiencing something just different than most Caminos contribute to someone's life. And then when we fast forward to these accessible group trips that we do, I mean, we're bringing 50 people together, and it's an intense established community before we even start. And so there's just a very different perspective around what pilgrimage can be. Often it's solo and it ends in community. These start in community and they end with a different kind of understanding of your responsibility and role within the bigger picture of life.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many of people that do it solo experience the same kind of thing. Maybe they do. It's just so different. It's just a very different way of going about it. And again, I don't think it's right or wrong. It's what's necessary when someone needs assistance in a chair. It's just a different ball.
Pat, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're touching on something that I don't think we've ever really talked about. I've never and will never have the experience of doing the Camino by myself.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
I have to do it with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's hard for me to even relate to somebody just doing it on their own. I would love to do it on my own. Get up and walk it myself. That'd be great. Not the case. It's not my reality. So it's almost like all I know is the Camino with community. I don't know. It's been interesting. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Until now.
Donna, my wife, and I, we're planning on doing the full 500 here in a few years together, the two of us. And we'll probably have our days where we walk, have our time alone, but we're not going to do it alone. But even then, you're a couple. You're not this big community of people. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how, I mean, she's come on 2 of these accessible Caminos. So that's her experience, is this intense, tight-knit group of 50 people that are just there to let come hell or high water, we're going to do this together kind of thing. And it's beautiful. But both of us have a little bit of, there's going to be some people who listen to this and like, dude, what did you just say? But I'm going to say it, is that there's a fear that I might be let down if I do it on my own.
Huh.
Because the intenseness, the intensity and the self-discovery that you experience when you're seeing yourself through so many other people's eyes in such a powerful connection of humanity, I don't know that a solo Camino can replicate that. I really don't. I'm willing to find out, but I'd be willing to bet money that it's not going to be as intense.
I do have a quick follow-up question to that, which is, when you look back at the documentary, do you recognize those guys? Does it feel like you?
A much younger version of me, yes. He had more hair,
less gray,
thinner, a little better looking.
I would probably say 50%. I mean, I don't think I can look back and be like, I don't know that guy at all. But in a way, I don't want to be that same guy. I want to be a person that grows and changes. And the pilgrimage, the first one we went on, for the film, I mean, it's without a doubt, it changed my life, changed Pat's life too. I mean, we've had amazing experiences since then. I mean, meeting people we never thought we'd meet, having conversations with people we never thought we would have. And some of those highlights along the way, you talk about bringing the Camino home with you, and how do you do that? And I want to give one quick story before we kind of I don't know, this is going to take us slightly off target, so kind of bear with me, but I feel this is where we need to go. Pat's going to know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I say it. We're in Chicago speaking at was it Story Brand with Donald Miller? I think that's we were there.
You changed the storyline. Last storyline conference. Yeah.
And anyway, we were done. I mean, we had a full day. We had met a lot of people. It was crazy. It was an awesome experience. And we're on our way back to the hotel because it was like we had to get up at like 4 a.m. to go fly out and go back home. And we're both just beat because we had been talking all day and whatnot. And we literally just like, we're starving, need something to eat. We just find some random, restaurant where like that place looks good. Like literally that's all the thought that went into it. And we get out of the car, we pull up, and there's just this massive line, coming out. We're like, oh crap, it's like this long wait time, whatever. And as we're waiting outside, we see this husband and wife, and this guy looks like he's about to fall over. Like just you breathe on him and he would fall over. And he looks at me coming down the sidewalk I'm in my power chair, and his wife turns to him and sarcastically says, "See, if he can have one of those, why can't you?" And just immediately Pat and I go into sarcastic mode and start giving this guy crap. And lo and behold, like we have like a 30, 40-minute conversation. I don't know, maybe it's not quite that long, but we're
parking lot, but
we're talking in the parking lot with him, and quickly found out he had like stage 4 terminal cancer. This guy maybe had a couple months to live, like not a lot. Yeah. And during that conversation, they said, "Hey, do you guys want to come to our house?" And we're like, "Can we eat first?" But these people, we had just met them, complete strangers, and Pat and I said, sure. Like, we go to this house and we end up having the best conversation with them. We eat dinner real quick and we end up getting directions to their house, and we cracked open a bottle of wine with them. It was probably maybe at midnight by the time we left there.
Easy.
And it was one of those experiences where I don't think I would have been open to that idea if I hadn't gone on the Camino.
Mm-hmm.
And it opened this door for this conversation that was filled with laughter. There was some tears shed. There was, they were asking why we were there and whatnot. And it just became one of those moments where like, I'll never forget it, because it just showed like, okay, if you're willing to kind of just go with it sometimes, you'll never know where that leads. And the Camino is the same way. Like you kind of just go with it and you're like, I don't know where this thing's going to go, but you're on it and you're going to figure it out. I know I took us off track with that.
No, I don't think you did at all.
Yeah. Jay, I think you're actually hitting on something that's super critical, really. And it goes back to Gray's question. You mentioned in that story that you said, I don't know if I would have done that before, right? And looking back, do we recognize the guys who were, those guys from, 11 years ago now? Is that right? Almost 12 years ago, I guess. Yeah, 11 years ago. I look back and I don't want to be who I was, but I am so grateful for the risks that version of me took so I could be who I am today.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think a lot of us wrestle with in many facets of life, is that sometimes we get hung up on who we were or what could have been or this, that, and the other, as opposed to looking at what we have right in front of us and recognizing that that is possible because the sacrifices or decisions that an earlier version of ourselves made, even though that person may not be who we want to be, that person made me right now possible. And there's a deep gratitude I think we both have for our 39-year-old selves. Like I would never want to be that 39-year-old again, but there's no way I could be who I am today without that 39-year-old doing and saying and giving up what he did. And that's I think was so beautiful about a Camino well walked and well experienced, is that there's a maturation that occurs. And I think we have a mutual friend, Justin, he actually went on our very first successful Camino with us, Ron Henry. When he walked with us, this guy was 81 years old, and he pushed and pulled stronger than most 30-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And he always talked about how the Camino was life concentrated. And that if we don't understand that the Camino is life concentrated, we're going to miss out on everything. Because we have to be able to bring back those experiences on the Camino and let them play out in our everyday life. Otherwise, kind of going back to what we said earlier, Greg, we'll be chasing the Camino experience, but never being able to fully embrace it.
Yeah.
Because we are not recognizing that it is contributing to who I am to do my day-to-day better. And until we do that, we're just walking.
There's like a handful of things I want to dive in because it wasn't off the track, because Justin, you tapped in unknowingly on some things that Greg and I have talked about in other conversations about the Camino. As you think about the Camino, just in terms of international travel and vulnerability and exposure to difference. And my wife and I traveled in 2012. We went around the world. And when we were telling people about our plan, the first question we got was, well, aren't you scared? Like that was 75% of the responses. The other 25% were, oh man, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. But overwhelmingly, the response was fear-based. Mm-hmm. And I think when you go and put yourself out there in a different culture, a different experience, it automatically opens you up. It creates this openness to say, I'm going to go to that person's house for dinner, or I'm going to go to this different place. And then, Greg, that question that led Justin to that about the legacy of their journey. I mean, we had traveled in 2012 and that changed our life. But I wouldn't have done the Camino without these guys, like in their story. And that's really what tipped Amy and I to do it. It was like, there's no reason we can't do this. And the legacy that's left on our life. And I think about it, it's not exaggerating. And I've said this before, like, I think about that experience every day of my life with gratitude. And it's a little bit about, Patrick, what you just said. I can't regret anything that I've done in my life. I mean, sure, do we have regrets? Should we have been better people? Or I wish I would have responded different in this situation, whatever. But writ large, I can't take anything back because I'm not here with what's happened thus far. You know, it's made me who I am, good and bad.
Yeah.
And so that idea of gratitude for all those experiences, taking the lessons to be a better person. That's Camino, but that's also life.
I will say this. I love that idea of like the Camino being life concentrated, because it does tie into exactly what you were saying, Justin. This idea of like, well, why can't we accept hospitality when it's offered? Why can't we, if these people invited us, we accept their invitation. That's what we do as human beings, right? And it's having those intense experiences on that trail that allow you to see like, oh yeah, I can love and I can be loved. And, this is a very intense way of doing it. But when I see it in the real world, I can spot it a little bit easier because I've done it in an intense way.
Makes it a lot easier to spot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because that's not the last time that's ever happened to me. It's happened to me twice since then. Mm-hmm. And one time I was with my wife and she was like, we're really gonna go over these people's houses? Like, yeah, we are. I said, it's gonna be fine, don't worry. And it was. We ended up playing pickleball. My kids played pickleball with them. Like, it was so random. but you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, I think it's exciting. I much rather put myself in, of course you don't want to put yourself in a position that's like unsafe. Like if somebody's wielding a knife at you and be like, come to my house. You're like, no, that's not a good idea. But, you could use your common sense there. But I think that's the magic. I think that's one of the magical things of the Camino, at least that I've experienced, is just being open to where life takes you. And sometimes you're gonna make mistakes. But I'm much rather, like you said, Greg, much rather make those mistakes than sit back and be completely fearful of what if.
Yeah, and if you do end up with a Larry David moment, you've got a great story to tell people.
Oh yeah.
We've talked to people who have had many Camino journeys, not just in Spain, but different pilgrimages. Over the times that you've walked, pushed the pilgrimage, what are some changes that you've seen just in and of itself? I know COVID was such a huge factor on that. I don't know if you guys have any pre or post COVID experiences, but just in the times and the journeys that you've made, whether, just something maybe generally or like different experiences that you kind of maybe profoundly different experiences that you had along the way. Just so few people get to do it multiple times.
Right.
And I just wonder, I kind of wonder from your experience what you've seen in that respect.
Oh man, I mean, let's see. So our first one was in 14. That was the full 500, and then we've done 5 since then with these accessible groups.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of approaching it from a different lens, right? Because we have all these individuals with limited mobility. But I would say what I don't know if it's going to fall into the category, Ryan, of change, but just very interesting in observing people's behavior. And I'm not talking people in the groups that we take, because we'll have 6 wheelchairs and another 35 helpers to make sure we get from point A to point B. But you'll have people that kind of like dock in, right? I mean, people walk this all year long. And just back in 2024, we had an experience where we're on the Portuguese. Incredible journey. Great group of people that are jumping in, but we had a lot of people that kind of wanted to be ancillary helpers to a certain degree. I mean, we try and protect the group to a certain degree, but we have people that want to kind of just dock in. They're curious. They might help here and there. And there's this one guy from, I can't remember, I think he's from Japan, but he was so perplexed at what was going on and so curious. We had a language barrier, but I mean, there's certain languages you can speak where the language doesn't matter, and helping's one of them, right? I mean, service is one of them, community is one of them. And so we've had some interactions with this guy, primarily through our film crew that's kind of documenting things. A couple days later, after we met him, he was out in front, and he was in the French way, not the Portuguese way, French way. But he's out in front, and he's finding rocks, and he's kicking rocks out of the way for the wheelchairs. Complete stranger, kicking rocks, and we saw him multiple times, and he would be looking for all the biggest rocks and get them all the way. And so he had this shift where he had come for a solo experience, and he saw a way that even though he wasn't part of our group, he could give back to whatever he had experienced when he stepped into our journey for a few days. And so I can't tell you how many times different people saw him kicking rocks. And then when we arrived in Santiago, he's there, and he was so excited to see all these people come into the square. And we knew, we didn't talk about it. We couldn't really talk about it because of the language barrier, but we knew that he had this intense sense of pride that he was in some way involved with something bigger than himself. And I feel like that is what we're seeing an increase of, is the desire for something that's bigger than ourselves. There's a lot of solo journeys out there, but as we're seeing an uptick in the numbers of people that are doing the journey, I'm convinced that a large portion of that is because people are so hungry for purpose and community, and they don't have anywhere else to find it. Mm-hmm. And those little stories are infectious. Like, who knows how many people are going to be on the Camino because the stories he tells. And that's one person. And so I think that's what I've seen as like a shift over the past decade, is that while the numbers of people have increased, I would say the percentage, I guess number per capita of people that are really longing for purpose, not looking for something intrinsic, they're looking for purpose. That number has skyrocketed. And it's because we don't have it in so many other places in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about, we've talked about this in a previous interview about the why of it. Like, why do people do it? And like, yeah, there are going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, this just seems like a cool thing to do. Right. Like, it's the next experience. And also, I think you've kind of unlocked this idea. The why may not matter because the journey is going to change you in some capacity. Like, it may be, those changes may be more profound than others, right? And we may not couch those always in spiritual terms, but this thing will change you.
But I think you hit something really important, is that you do have a lot of people that go because it's the next cool thing, the next experience. But even amongst that population, a lot of people we talk to, I would say the majority of people we talk to don't know why they're doing it on the front end, unless they're going to part of one of these groups. They don't know why. It's just this pull. and they don't find out that why until they're 2/3 the way through it. And more often than not, it's leveling in a good way, including the people that go along. It's a next cool experience. I love people. I want to do something different, whatever else. And then they're 3 weeks in and they're like, I have such a deep appreciation for who I am and who I want to be, and let's make a difference. And it goes back to purpose.
Yeah. Greg, I don't know if you have another question, and this is kind of building on the why. When you have led groups, guys, what type of prep work have you done, or have you done with people to try to unpack some of that stuff and to say, hey, maybe this isn't just a vacation, or we're just not going to go on a hike? Like, can you talk about how you talk about intentionality with people before they go?
Oh, for sure. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh yeah. So when we just to kind of give you guys a peek behind the hood. So when we open up applications, it's all done by application, and we ask a lot of questions. Try to get as many, trying to get a snapshot of somebody that we don't know as quickly as possible. But when we kind of weed out, based on kind of first pass, we kind of go into the second round. Pat and I have interviewed a lot of people, and we've been on these groups enough to now we know what to look for. And it really boils down to like the heart of it. Like, I think, you got the people that are willing to jump in and be like, yeah, I'll do whatever you need. Sometimes they'll even say that to your face, but then they get on the trail and they're almost a little selfish, because they think, oh, it's all about me, I'm pushing or whatever. I would probably say it's becoming more difficult or more rare for that to happen, but we still get those from time to time. But we do our best to really prep on the front end and go, this is not about you. This is not about me. This is about us. And you have to set, and this is not, you may come into it with religious angles. You might come into it with a physical angle. You might come into it with this sounds cool, I'd like to do this. But no matter what angle you're coming in from, you have to set everything else aside and go, we're doing it for the greater good. It's not about me. And we do as much as we can. Kind of once we kind of solidify the groups, then we do even more stuff between then and when we go to try to create some sort of community ahead of time, so that when we're together, because what makes our accessible communities interesting is that they're global. Like, they're people from every walk of life. Yeah, we get a lot of Americans and Canadians, a lot of New Zealanders, but it spans the globe for sure. And so these people don't know each other at all. So, and then they're showing up, in Europe with us, and they're trusting in that process. So the more that we can do, Patrick and I, to help facilitate the heart and the mind ahead of time, the better off we're going to be. And we trust our instincts as well. So we don't, we kind of listen for certain things or whatever. It just depends on the person and the situation. But, it's because we have a very specific thing that we're trying to achieve here. I mean, we have people with disabilities, some pretty semi, I wouldn't say like ultra severe, like they're on oxygen type thing, but they have physical conditions like MS and cerebral palsy a couple times. So it's like we have to be able to create an alchemy of a group that works for that, because we're asking somebody to uproot themselves, fly halfway across the world in a wheelchair, which is not easy.
And trust themselves to strangers. Yeah.
Huh?
And entrust themselves to strangers.
Yeah, and trust themselves.
Yeah.
It's a big ask.
I can piggyback on that, Jay. When you talk about what things we do, it's an intense communal experience, and whatever we can do to facilitate that community on the front end, we do. And so we have like a group where they can get online and they can chat and they can share ideas and they get in conversations. And then you'll wind up someone who's like, I'm in Orange County. Well, I'm 6 miles north. Let's meet up for hikes. And then pretty soon you have these little pockets of community within the bigger community that form before we leave. And then you have people sharing ideas and thoughts about gear or how they're training for X, Y, or Z. And we give them a full training regimen so people are kind of on the same page. And then all these shared, like little tiny shared experiences that feed into this thread of connection that winds up being a rope between people. Like it's so strong, so that when people show up on day one, and I mean, everyone's excited about the Camino on day one. Like I've never met anybody who's not just like so jacked, like I'm here,
Yeah.
But they're excited to be on the Camino, and then they're excited to hug this person they've been talking to for the past 6 months on social or on, line somewhere, or the few phone calls they've had here, or the few whatever, few group calls we've had together, and there's facilitating those human connections on the front end. It really helps, I guess, mitigate any possibility for some of the things Justin was talking about earlier, where there can be some struggles, right? Where people make it about them. And yes, it always happens, but you get 50 people together, there's no way it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's muted, it's lessened. And usually those individuals, by the end, even though it's only 6 days of hiking together, by the end, they're like, I get it now.
Yeah. Course corrected.
Yeah. Like, well, I think of Jay, I mean, you said that. I think of, back in 2019, we had an individual that was, I mean, they asked me, like, hey, like, this is great pushing and everything, but when am I going to get my Camino? And I said, this is your Camino. This is it. That's us together. If you want to be by yourself, go home. You're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, yeah. And 2 days later, I looked at me like, I get it now.
Yeah. I would also extend that a little bit too, just by, and I'm not picking on the Catholic Church, but like, there's also this idea of like kind of the spiritual directive of like, this is how you do the Camino. Mm-hmm. Like it has to be with this kind of specific liturgical intentionality, but it probably doesn't. Like, and we're seeing that this already. You've told multiple stories about that experiences that have nothing to do with the Big C Church, right? But are profoundly spiritual and life-changing for people.
We talk about the Big C Church and everything, and Catholic Church. I mean, this thing's roots are in penance, right? I mean, it came from a pretty interesting background of intentions. Let's just say, every time that we try and come into things where religion drives it, it fails. We've seen it over and over and over throughout history. It does not work. It hasn't worked ever. But when relationship drives it, and religion winds up being something that is informed by the intensity of the relationships that we can actually create and possess, then we have something we can work with. And those are the Caminos when we have conversations with people where you're like, oh, you had a completely different experience than anybody I've ever encountered, because the relationship was everything. And there might be some religious aspects to it, or some spiritual aspects. Well, I would argue that it's all spiritual because of just how we're created. But there becomes this dynamic where the relationships that we're called into inform our understanding of how religion should be, as opposed to religion driving how we should engage with people on a relational level. And that's the disconnect in my mind of where people have this liturgical approach to the Camino, and they're so focused on the prescription that they miss out on the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I just wanted to interject that real quick. Sorry.
Put that on a t-shirt.
That's a lot of type.
No, seriously, that's great. That's great stuff right there. Yeah. The prescription and experience.
It actually leads me to my last question, which is one of the reasons why I show your film to the youth group before we do these pilgrimage trips every time is one, it's just an inspiring story of like, yes, you can, because that's what I hear from, especially from like teenagers on like day 2 when they're feeling uncomfortable and their feet hurt and their knees hurt a little bit and they're like, well, I can't go anymore. Like I'm done, right? Like I'm shot. I'm like, I think we can go a little bit more, right? Like we can push a little bit. We can see where to go. So I love showing them this movie because of that, this idea that yes, you can. You can do more than you think you can in your brain, right? But the other side of it is something that you articulate in the film, Justin, and I don't know if you want to unpack it more here. You've probably talked about it a lot. But it's this idea that when we're on the journey together and we're in community, we're in relationship, which is what this is all about, right? You're going to want to help somebody else, but look for the times when somebody can help you, right? Look for the times when you're the one that needs help and let somebody help you. That's the real gift of this movie, is like this real exchange of relationship where it's like, yes, I can help you, but I can also let you help me. And that's going to solidify what it is that we're building here in this group.
That's true. I mean, I think it's, Pat and I, we've had a lot of time to reflect on things, and being on multiple Caminos, it just keeps being reinforced. And I'll be first to tell you, like, I'm stubborn, just like everybody else. Pat will probably tell you, I'm a stubborn dude. Like, of course I want to do things on my own, but I live a life where I'm required by, just to survive, that I need help every day. But put that aside for a second here, is that it's like a muscle that needs to be flexed. And you're 100% right, because you can't, it's like having, okay, let me pause. I'm gonna kind of readjust here. Patrick and I, our friendship would not be the same if he was always giving to me, right? It's not a one-way street.
Right.
And it wouldn't be the same if I was always giving to him and he just sat back and just like didn't do anything, What makes relationship where I believe humanity and, more importantly, love can flourish is when you set aside your own agenda to let somebody into your journey, because they can bring you insight. They can bring you, in my case, physical support, but also shed light and give me new ideas of how I could be better. And not only just as a friend, as a person, as a husband, father, but, it gives me it's such a gift. I just see it as a gift when you let down your guard and just be like, yeah, I can't do it right now. Like, it sucks. Like, and what I see over and over and over again is people just shut down because they're afraid. We talk about being afraid, or that fear-based, like, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to, it's all the ifs, like, what if, this, that. In reality, it's completely the opposite. Like, it's the more that you let people into your journey, the more you can thrive as a human and open your eyes to a new way of thinking, a new way of being. We got a lot of funny stories we could share. But here's a quick one. Prime example. First time Pat showered me, helped me in the bathroom. Like, dude, that's a whole nother level of friendship. Right?
Yeah.
Whole nother level.
I mean, you got to wash the undercarriage. You have to.
It's, it ain't
do the
pretty.
job.
It ain't pretty at all. But, it was one of those scenarios where he came down and gave my wife a weekend away. And he was like, it was that moment of our friendship where that changed. Was it embarrassing? Yeah. Was it hilarious? Yes. Was it disgusting? Yeah, it was, like everything in between. But and then it was one of the first moments that I was like, oh, okay, I get it here. Because, we kind of laughed our way through it, but then that just kind of opened the door for now it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. Yeah.
This makes me think. This makes me think of Brene Brown. Something I heard her say. I don't know, a couple years ago, maybe, about the BS idea of all relationships are 50-50. Like she was talking about marriage, and she's like, everybody says, "Oh, marriage like 50-50." And she's like, "No, sorry, that's bullshit. It is never 50-50. She's like, what my marriage looks like most days 80-20 or 30-70.
Yeah.
And she's part of that is being able to tell your friend. Like you guys being able to tell each other, or me being able to tell my wife, I don't have it today. Like I need help, and that's really hard to do, but when you do that, it's you're in that journey together, and it's not just this illusion of, well, we're going to push each other equally or whatever. Some days you got to work a little harder, right? And some days you got, yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you, Ryan, like you talk about your worldwide journey you did with your wife, like guarantee you 100%, like I'm making a very gross assumption, but I'm pretty high in my probability here that there were days like that you're like, she had to carry you and you had to carry her.
Yeah.
Like,
she'd probably be like, I felt like I was carrying a whole lot.
yeah.
I remember
like, I don't have it today. I'm tired. Like I'm angry or whatever. And you're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
That is as great an answer to the why of the Camino, this thing that Ryan and I are picking at, as anything. This real sort of exactly what you were saying, Patrick, that there's this diluted thing, this diluted idea of relationship and community that we're given in capital C church, but on the Camino is so concentrated that it's like you can't help but embrace it because it's just so right there, and those relationships, those bonds feel so much stronger because of the intensity of the experience. And it feels like, I think you're totally right. I think that is something that people are craving, not a Disney-fied version of community, but like real honest to God community.
Yeah, really have it.
Thanks, guys. Before we let you go, tell us about the accessibility groups. What's the website? How do people sign up for it? If they want to help, if they want to participate, what do you do?
Pat, you want to take it? You want me to?
Sure, it doesn't matter. All right, yeah. How are you filling the gaps?
Sure.
If I have some. Yeah, so the Accessible Caminos website is accessiblecamino.com. They are accessible, or I guess I should say disability-friendly groups. Calling something accessible in Spain on trails probably is a misnomer, but as accessible as possible. But yeah, we take individuals with limited mobility, have everybody from people who are visually impaired, people in wheelchairs, people who just walk slow and need some assistance with the chair, and we take them on the last 100 kilometers of the Camino. We do both the French way and the Portuguese way. So we start in Sarria into Santiago on the French way, start in Vigo up to Santiago on the Portuguese, hike over the course of 6 days, and we bring a bunch of volunteers to jump in and push, pull, lift, sometimes full on carry individuals across streams, bridges, you name it. And it's an incredibly physical thing, a very different Camino than when you just walk it, because there's times it's quite a lot of work for everyone, but it is the most intense and gratifying communal experience I've ever been a part of. And so our whole goal with this was just to make the Camino possible for individuals who would never have dreamt that they could do something like this. And I gotta give credit where credit's due. I mean, Justin had the idea originally, and he's like, man, I think we could probably put something together here. And then through our conversations, we're like, you know what, we should go with everybody. We should do this together, as opposed to putting somebody on a plane and have fun. We go with them. And so we're doing our very last 2 journeys in 2026. We'll do one more on the French and one more on the Portuguese way in June of 2026. I mean, we need volunteers. We need people who are willing to trust somebody else to push and pull them on this journey. But you go to accessiblecamino.com and you can sign up on the wait list. Right now, our wait list is filling up, but we will only launch the application process to waitlisters. Keep that something that's available for the people who are really, really earnestly seeking something like this. What did I miss, Jay?
I think you got it.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Justin Skisik, Patrick Gray. I'll Push You is the documentary. You can find it online. Thanks again for the conversation, you guys.
Thanks, fellas. Good to see you again.
All right, Ryan. So the interview with Justin and Patrick went great, but we have a little more information for the listeners of our pod. We are launching a Kickstarter campaign.
What on earth?
No, right?
Not another Kickstarter.
If you have ever had any interactions with Ryan or I, you have an email sitting in your inbox right now saying, please give to our Kickstarter. No, this is a crowdfunding app that allows patrons to donate to our pilgrimage project. And we're looking to raise at least the cost of the recording equipment that we're looking to get. And if we can raise a little bit more, that's great. We are applying for grants. This isn't our sole funding, but we wanted to make sure that not only did we, try to make the budget that we have for this trip, but we wanted to also allow folks who love and support us to contribute to this journey. So Kickstarter is going to be on our website.
Yeah, and I also want to say too, because people can rightfully be suspicious about Kickstarter projects. You could do a Kickstarter for anything. And this really is more, I just feel like I want to say this is not about us trying to get a trip out of this. This whole project really is about us trying to pay forward the experiences that we've had on the Camino and to interrogate why this seems to be growing as fast as it is, or as much as it is, as we've talked about in multiple episodes. We talked a bit about it with Justin and Patrick tonight. And so I would also say for people listening to this who've had great Camino experiences, if I can be so bold, this is your chance to continue to share that experience by supporting a project like this, because the goal is not just walking the Camino, because that would be a wonderful experience in and of itself, and we wouldn't ask people to support that. But what we're trying to do is tell a story as we walk the Camino. So it's a bit more than that. And so that we do need support in that way. And it's a chance to spread not just the message of the Camino, but to also ask these very important questions about where we are as a people, where we are, at least for you and I as Americans, and, what is our relationship to people, and especially now, my goodness, internationally, and to ask these bigger questions and to share and to help share other people's Camino journeys as well.
Just go to our website, poppingcollegepodcast.com, click on the Kickstarter link at the top, or go to our socials. We'll be featuring it there. Or again, if you're our friend, expect an email at some point. And
carrier pigeon.
Thank you so much for everything. And we will see you next time on the Pilgrimage Project. I don't know what our next topic is, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I'll say one last word as a parting word here to just echo again, because I don't think I stressed this enough. Please watch I'll Push You if you haven't seen it. It'll change your life. It changed mine. Patrick and Justin are just two incredible human beings, and it was great to see them again and to hear from them and how their journey has continued. And excited for the last two journeys that they have in store next year. Hopefully we'll see them along the way.
Yeah. So a huge thanks to Justin, Patrick. Huge thanks to you, Ryan.
And thanks to you.
We will see you next time.
Do the walk of life.